Thank you, Mrs. Ambassador, for inviting us here and for giving us this fantastic opportunity. This is my second time here. That's why I really appreciate these efforts. Since 2020 was very difficult and also very challenging year, not only for Turkey and for Georgia, for the whole world. Let's start from our interview with summing up last year's results. So, what challenges did you see in terms of work of Turkish embassy here in Georgia, and what results do you have from last year?
Well, I think one of the most difficult parts of being an ambassador or a representative of another country, which is very close to Turkey, geographically, politically, culturally, not to have anyone being able to come as a delegation. So I wasn't able to achieve those visits which we had planned a year before. And that was a difficult part because it's very close, and I'm saying, like, you can come with the car even, but then there's COVID, and then of course the Georgian government had also difficulties in going and coming. So basically, my biggest difficulty was being so close and closed. That was the difficult part, but a little caricaturizing the situation. Because we had really good relations and the dialogue with the Georgian government at all levels, we were able to go through these difficulties even without person-to-person contacts, with phone calls, with messaging, and sometimes at the very technical level. We didn't have to involve higher levels to manage to overcome the difficulties that we faced together. What were these difficulties? Obvious to everyone. The health situation, which means both Turkey and Georgia had to secure the public health, which meant taking measures, extreme measures, including martial law, including closure of many businesses. The tourism sector in both countries did and still does strive from this, are struck. And it is a big burden for the economy and for the people. So our investors, Turkish investors in those sectors have also suffered. And with that, we have to manage the consequences, and it will continue. So it's not finished yet. Well, a year is a calendar. It's like the earth goes around the sun for a certain time, and then we celebrate. And 2020 was a difficult year. We all thought maybe after the New Year's there's a new time, but then there's a continuation. So yes, we will continue to manage the consequences of this crisis. So most importantly, for me personally, it was the pandemic and the consequences, managing. When you consider we had 3 border crossings, now only 1 border crossing is working for pedestrian passenger crossings. The other 2 are working only for the truck cargo. When you consider we had 5 flights a day of Turkish Airlines and the Pegasus, the Turkish flag airlines. So with Pegasus plus Turkish Airlines, we had almost 7, 8. And the charters included in summers, you were looking at more than 30 almost flights a week. Now we're talking about 3 days or 4 days a flight. So these are of course difficult situations, which means people-to-people contacts, which is essential, accessibility, essential for trade, essential for consular relations, their families who are Georgian Turkish families There are children whose one set of grandparents are in Turkey, one set of grandparents are here, living there or here. There are people in the other parts of the region, in Azerbaijan, who are used to crossing through Georgia to Turkey, and suddenly they got stuck there. We found out that we had citizens in Armenia who were traveling through Georgia, and then they got stuck there. So you could see the workload of the embassy and our consulate in Batumi increased to respond to these situations where we had to give a solution. And the truck traffic, because definitely Georgia has been, still is, and will be the main bridge of that transit traffic from Europe to Trans-Caspian routes. Close to 200,000 trucks have crossed during this year. Because when the Iranian route closed, all that truck traffic came to Georgia. That may sound just as statistics, but when you ask to the people in Sarpi working at the both sides of the border, they've done a fantastic job. So many trucks, the roads in Georgia are being built, infrastructure is still developing, and how to handle that? The petrol police has been working day and night in Georgia to keep road security. So, and of course my embassy is part of that effort to cooperate, Batumi consulate as well, the Georgian embassy in Ankara, Istanbul consulate, Trabzon consulate. So we are all in this together as a team. It's not even like now a Turkish side, a Georgian side. It's like there's a problem, then everybody gets involved. So that pandemic gave us that problem solving and building a very pragmatic, solution-oriented, bureaucratic reflexes, which is a good thing. When in a bureaucracy, if you have the solution-oriented joint action, I think this is admirable. So there's one plus of the pandemic is that we started working very much solution-oriented and together with our Georgian counterparts, and I hope they think about it the same about us. And we found out the gaps, what we should be doing more when we go back to normal. I don't know how normal, new normal will be, but we found out what we can do, what we have done during this pandemic, and how can we continue certain things so that that new normal will be even better than the old normal. And of course, this is all happening in a situation where the global crisis, a global economic and health crisis is continuing. And we have to deliver, as the neighbors, security, health security to our populations. And I always say it, and I will keep saying it, we are as secure and safe as our neighbor. If Georgia is not health-wise or otherwise secure, we are not. And the same thing goes for Georgia, for Turkey. So with this pandemic, it's not over. We are not there yet. We still have to think 2020 is over, but all the issues that it brought us upon are here. So yes, there's a new beginning after the New Year's, which was always a pleasure to be in Georgia for the New Year's. But again, there will be, I think, the summer when the tourism sectors of both countries will hopefully be able to breathe a bit with the vaccinations. And the world will maybe able to travel again. And the consumption of the people will increase, purchasing power will increase, so that we could continue production and trade. It's a cycle. We are in this together. definitely. Whatever I can do personally, whatever the embassy can do with our trade attaché, our commercial section, with our security, Ministry of Interior people, the customs, we are all in this together.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned tourism sector, this industry that was really stuck during the pandemic, but several weeks ago I have read the news from the Turkish media that Istanbul airport became the busiest European airport in 2020. Yeah, so before that London Heathrow airport was like the leading. So also we know that Turkey, despite the pandemic, hosted quite a large number of tourists. So how, if we talk about Georgia, what would be your recommendation? What we can learn from you in terms of like opening this sector and like to give people who are employed in this sector, to give these people opportunity to continue their work?
Well, I am certainly not the person to give any lessons to anyone in this sector, because Georgia has a good government, Georgia has good business associations, and associations who are particularly uniting businesses in tourism, professionals of tourism, and in different levels. So, I mean, the World Tourism Organization has a Georgian citizen for Secretary General again, which I congratulate. So what I'm going to say is definitely not about advice, suggestion, but I can tell you that in general, as for the tourism sector or any other, we need to balance and make a good calculation of risks. So calculated risks is necessary. And in Turkey, I believe, as compared to other years, of course we had a drop, but we were able to open under certain circumstances several touristic regions for foreign tourism. However, in Turkey, I think the resilience, whatever we can have, comes from the domestic sector as well. There's a domestic tourism sector. Now in Georgia, compared to Turkey, possibly that is a smaller sector, but it could be vitalized. It could be used, and unfortunately, during this time, certain other countries were allowed into Georgia, but the Turkish citizens were not in that category. So we couldn't have the Georgian market benefit from that Turkish domestic energy. Because it's very close to Georgia, we could have, I think it worked a bit with Bulgaria, I'm not sure, but you can check it out. So this land borders give a flexibility, and we could have used that with very disciplined rules and regulations, obviously. And yet, there's always a risk. So it is, of course, the priority and the privilege of the Georgian health authorities and the government to take that risk or not. The other is, of course, I mean, we just seen it in Turkey, unfortunately, very recently. It's the citizens, it's the people who should be very responsible of their own behavior. Like, you can go to skiing, but you don't do parties at the ski centers. If you want to ski, go ski. But then wear your mask, don't be in a safe distance, and skiing actually is the best place, or you have the goggles and the mask, and you can arrange the lifts, and you can arrange the residential permits according to the health certificates and stuff, the tests, for instance. So in Turkey, the government gave that opportunity to the people and to the tourism administration. facilities. So what happened was that a group of people went and partied. That's irresponsible behavior. It has nothing to do with the government. It has nothing to do with the public sector, the tourism sector. It's about the people. So we have to learn as responsible adults how to use those freedoms and liberties that we are able to try at least. And of course, the auto-control of the sector was important. The reply came from the tourism investors themselves as well, not only the ministries, but basically they criticized. So it's auto-control of the civil society. It's the people is very important. So I would suggest, not maybe for the governments, but for us, like, let's be responsible and like don't throw away your masks in the streets. In Turkey, this is the campaign, and we're trying. Most of the things that I like in Georgia and I don't like in Georgia are very similar in Turkey. We are very close culturally and behaviorally. So I can see many debates going on here, the same debates in Turkey. So with that, I would say one thing is that maybe there's professional associations, the hotels, the tour operators, tour guides, or small hotels, the nature tourism people can come together with their Turkish counterparts and maybe learn more about these precautions, measures, or solutions that they may have. Maybe that could be a good solution, and they don't need to come together physically. It's easily available, this whole Zoom webinars, seminars, whatever on the internet. And as the embassy, I will be more than happy to do that combinations and contacts if there's interest from the Georgian side. Because the Turkish tourists who have traveled during this summer even to the Black Sea, Eastern Black Sea, to our side of Maçakhel, which is Maçakhala on your side, to the east of Turkey, Erzurum, Kars, and all that, as tourists, responsible adults who have made their tests, who did not get in touch with the COVID suspicious people, and so all that helped. But of course, it also brought some swell when people went, for instance, for the rural areas to start working in their fields, knowing that they had contact. They caused trouble. So we have issues similar, or we can talk about these measures, and ministries of health this coming month, no, actually this month, February, they're going to have some consultations about how to cooperate more. I'm hoping in the next months we will have some more contacts about the ministries of economy and included tourism and transport sections. So this will be happening between the governments, but the business owners can come together too and develop certain solutions, like applications. Georgia has a vibrant IT section. What could be the IT solution to this controlling movements? We have application in Turkey, which everybody has you want to fly in Turkey, you got to have that application. It means all your information is there. So how can that application be used for trans-border tourism purposes, for instance?
Okay, that's interesting. And also you mentioned that the Ministry of Health of Turkey is going to visit Georgia in this month?
Not visit. They will have an online...
Okay.
Deputy ministers, I think, are going to talk online about many issues, not only COVID. about cooperation. In a couple of months ago, we've signed an MOU, and I think we will continue that cooperation about many things, but of course regarding on COVID too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So from today, from 1st of February, Georgia started canceling restriction on international regular flights. So what is your expectations regarding like Turkish airline companies? How frequently they will start flights from and to Georgia?
Well, the Turkish Airlines is of course working according to the demand, and I know that they were ready to establish these flights, increased flights, as early as October. And somehow it didn't happen then. Then at some stage they were able to have those flights. They will work on that, possibly including the demands that are many. So it will also be depending on the seasons. Of course, now it's Europe is closing down again because of the new wave, and people probably will be very much willing to come here. But touristically speaking, the ski resorts are closed, and the restaurant business is closed. So bringing tourists here are not now easy. And then if they're not coming as tourists, then they should be coming on business. And so how that will fill the demand for increased flights, we don't know. But something we are looking forward to see. It's not about Turkish Airlines making profit on the Georgian market. It's about connectivity. And we would like Turkish Airlines to keep their flights for the future because of connectivity. Because Tbilisi, it's not only a city, it's the symbol of Caucasus in many respects. And I have my firm belief that Georgia is when we talk about Caucasus, Georgia is the Caucasus. The center has always been so. So when this extraordinary times of COVID will go away, we will see that concept coming back. So Turkish Airlines should be there. But possibly there will be some, and we will not go back to that 5 times a flight unless the Georgians are also flying to Turkey as they used to, or to the transit to the other countries. And the other countries are closed down too. It's not only Georgia, it's everywhere it's closed down. Like if you want to go skiing in Austria, it's also you can't go coming from another country. So the airlines, of course, will be suffering a bit more, but hopefully they will be there when we need them.
Mm-hmm. And maybe vaccination will help us.
Yes. Most importantly, Turkish Airlines have prioritized Georgia. It is very important for us. They have continued to fly from, for instance, Ankara last year, before the pandemic, although it was not a very profitable flight. But they do prioritize Georgia. And we believe that Georgia, and we are proud when my friends, Georgian friends, they say, oh, it's our airlines, our Turkish Airlines. There is no big compliment than that when somebody tells that it's our Turkish Airlines. I say, yes, it's your Turkish Airlines.
Okay, so it would be really interesting your opinion about what gives to Turkey the fact that Georgia is your neighbor country.
it's, I mean, do you want keywords or do you want a full sentence? You know, first,
Just shortly.
shortly, it is a big comfort that we have a country, our neighbor, who likes us and who is like us. I told you, like, the good things and the bad things we have are very similar. So, like I do here, I see things which sometimes disturbs me in the street, like the nylon bags. When you're walking, there are lots of nylon bags. The same thing disturbs me in Turkey, because it is also an issue. So our issues are similar, but also the hospitality, the smiling face, that human contact, and the understanding of who we are, where we come from. So it's a comfort. This is people-to-people feeling. On the political side, geopolitically, Georgia is a country which has Euro-Atlantic orientation. Georgia is a country where the governments of Georgia, since the beginning, have done their most not to give anyone or any side an opportunity to hurt Turkey. Turkish national interest, Turkish security. The same goes for Turkey. So we have an understanding with Georgia since 1918, actually. 1918, it was the time when the Georgian and the Turkish soldiers had a conflict. It was a time when our diplomats were bargaining in Batumi, in Trabzon, negotiating around tables. And it was the time when they understood the value of having friendly governments on each side of the border, and they agreed on that border. And I think our Georgian policy have been very clearly given by Atatürk itself in his reception of the Georgian ambassador then in Ankara. He said, we need a strong, independent Georgia. And this has been the case. In 1921, when Georgia ceased to exist as a democratic republic, we waited until 1991. So it didn't change much. And then we continued where? And to this day, from President Shevardnadze, President Saakashvili, President Margvelashvili, President Zurabishvili, they all, for us, are the presidents of our neighbor. Independent, democratic, Georgian Republic. So to know that is very important. Yes, there are good days and bad days in every country, in Turkey too. I mean, I counted like 4 presidents. Gamsa Gurdiye, President Gamsa Gurdiye, I didn't because that was a civil war. But we recognized the sovereignty and independence. And all those times, we also had good days and bad days in Turkey. And once Georgia was independent, we had them together. In 90s, Turkey was not a rich country. We are still not a very rich country, but the Georgians would remember who knew Turkey then. The shops were not full of things like it is today. Our productions were not maybe that high. But there were always people who were willing to give. Oh, you're from Georgia. That's like neighbor, that's our relative. So it was about neighborhood and the trade, the credit lines. I've seen the papers, the archives. And all that is because we believe Georgia is a friend. And I can assure you that with Georgians, maybe we did not live that long together as we did with many Balkan states. But that culture is there. I mean, who has the closest thing to yogurt? Matsoni. It's like, this is why I would say it's very important to know that I can find matsoni here.
Like ayran, yeah?
Like yogurt in Turkey. And or like ayran in Turkey. Or like when we see the baje, I say, oh, it's charkestovu. It's not charkestovu for you, but it is very similar. The taste is similar. And there on that table there are lots of books, and one particular book which talks about many Georgians in Turkey. They are ethnic Georgians, as there are ethnic Abkhaz, as there are ethnic Karapapaks who migrated to Anatolia in the 19th century, and some before even. So the Caucasus component of the Turkish today, what constitutes the Turkish nation, is very much influenced by Georgia. And as Georgians, because your Kartvelian character is so unique, like your alphabet, you may not realize it, but when we find those similarities when we come here, it's like you find your neighbor, you find your long lost ancestor, cousin. Yeah. That feeling. That's why I would always suggest that the Georgians to go and visit İnegöl, Kocaeli, or that Çveneburi places where you would find those Sakarya. This is west, northwest. But even in Adana, which is the south, there are Georgians. The Cherkes everywhere in Turkey. So that Caucasus compartment in Turkey is full of Georgian affiliates. And of course in Artvin, Erzurum, Kars areas, coming from the 12th century, it was once upon a time under the Georgian, Kartvelian influence. And of course, there are things that we don't know, Georgians might know, and they know. And so we learn together about the history, which is very important. So what does it give to us to have Georgia as a neighbor? Trust, and a lot of, I would say, confidence. Because, of course, there are issues. I mean, you live with your brother, you have issues. You live with your sisters, you have issues. Of course, we have issues. It doesn't mean that we understand everything the same way. Or sometimes our interests not necessarily come 100% close. It comes 80% close. But at 20%, well, that's why they have us the diplomats with. Yeah. That's what we work on. But in certain situations, in some other countries, I must say, the Turkish diplomats have to work harder because they have like 80% non-supporting interest. Here, I must say that I am privileged. Maybe I should not say this openly. I am a little privileged on that.
Okay. So you have been holding the position of ambassador of Turkey to Georgia nearly 3 years, and more than 3 years, and you know quite well Georgian business environment. So it is really interesting. How would you assess this environment in Georgia? How easy is doing business? What kind of claims, for example, do Turkish business people have in Georgia? I'm sure that they are coming into the embassy and you are discussing some, issues.
Mm-hmm. I once said this, and I will say it again. I call something called the headache factor, headache index. The headache index is about, if you're working on business, you need to take this risk of a bit of headache, because after all, I'm a government worker, right? And so I don't have to deal with those daily struggles of the business, those people who have to invest money and to employ people, to give them livelihood, to pay their taxes. So making business is taking risks of that headache, which we are grateful for. Because if everybody wanted to work in the corporate government, white-collar works, who would have been the entrepreneurs to do this? They risk. So they need our support. Those who take that risk, they need our support to decrease that headache index. In Georgia, I would say that headache index is comparatively and relatively lower than many other places. But the business is not only about government, the rules and regulations. The business is about competition ethics. And the business is about making money. And when in the capitalist world, the people who they are running for money, they forget all about ethics. And it's not only about Georgia. I mean, look, all the big technological companies in the world, the whole Wall Street is talking about this. So in Georgia, because of that transition to the capitalist market economy, there were, I think, a time when many things were very free, unregulated. And then the people had to get used to that idea that this long-term common good is better than your short-term profits. So until that becomes a jointly, mutually accepted norm, we need a good, very good judicial system everywhere in the world for the checks and balances. And in Georgia, this is a work in progress.
But still an issue.
Everywhere it is an issue, and in Georgia too. But I mean, Georgia is not a singular example. But this is something that we work on. I did welcome good developments last year, including an arbitration and mediation. There was an association which was established, a mediation, for instance. So certain things sometimes are not only about law, it's about justice and fairness. So all these concepts have to work. And secondly, I said something long-term and short-term. It's the market who should do this. Long-term common good and short-term profits. This is not something the governments or the bureaucrats, the diplomats can decide. It's the businesses themselves have to see that for their country, for their society, for the people. And so the Turkish business here, this is what we advise to them. I advise them, don't come to Georgia for short-term profits. Come here for long-term business. Be a long-term investor. Be a long-term trader which aims at joint production, targeting third markets, and this is happening. I've seen good examples. I've also seen disappointments. It was about wrong partners, wrong investment models. Yes, so these are issues. Now, what I could say about the Georgian business environment, I see a couple of issues which we should work together with our investors, with the Turkish traders, with the Georgian business world, Georgian government involved. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about more trust in, I would say, the Turkish financial institutions. The Turkish banks, as they call it, have more potential to work here, but it's not happening yet. The other issue is about developing strategies, regional strategies for certain sectors like logistics. Georgia has the ability to become a hub, a trade hub, more than a transit. How to do that? We need strategy together in win-win solutions. I always say win-win. I mean, you can't come here to Georgia and only think that all the profit is yours. But also, the Georgian side cannot also think that they will take more of the profit just because they are here. They need to, everybody needs to put either labor, technology, know-how, capital, something. So those are models which I think have good prospects for Turkey and Georgia. It is happening in the meantime. So I'm trying to see if we could put these good stories and this case, good case stories, and put it as an example to Turkey and to Georgia. I've met very distinguished Georgian trade houses who have been selling Turkish export materials, consumer goods, food stuff, construction materials, very good ones. They're very successful, they have profited, and I think their cases are also very important. Why they have survived in this business for almost 25, 30 years, while some others didn't. How did they establish that trust relationship with the supplier side? They've overcome the wars, the crises, all that. They lived through that. Their partnership lived. I mean, even the marriages don't live that long. So, I mean, when you think about it, so there are very good cases which I think we should honor. And more to do. There's a lot more to do because Georgia has a lot of prospects in the agricultural sector, full chain, logistics, I said. I'm thinking IT definitely. There is potential here. Tourism sector, in the nature tourism, surely. I have my own reservations about the casino tourism, but I will limit myself to that sentence now. Let's say diversification of tourism is necessary, particularly from Turkey. And plus regional perspectives. It's not only about Georgia and Turkey anymore. We have you've mentioned among your questions Baku Tbilisi cars. We're talking about, when we say Baku Tbilisi cars, from Europe to Central Asia to China. So we need to think, what can we do more in addition to the transit together? I don't want to go back to a Soviet-style planning of different components being too dependent on each other. But I think there are things that we can do along that thinking. Electricity, the energy. We have the pipelines. How can we use those pipelines for something else?
So you have mentioned several sectors. Do you think that these sectors might be potentially interesting for Turkish investors?
Look, I don't know what will be interesting for Turkish investors now, to be frank. In the old days, it was construction. If you say construction, it means construction materials, architectural projects, and so on and so forth. But now in post-COVID, we have to look how the new demand and supply in different sectors will develop. An example, a Turkish firm, Getir, started, it was a startup which was able to do this courier service. They established themselves in the UK. With the system they have developed, they're able to bring anything to your door in 10 minutes. So that's, and in Georgia, I always joke about Turkey. When I first went to Turkey from my posting in 2000s, I was very surprised to see motorcycle couriers for McDonald's. I said, how lazy we are. That, you know, they not even drive in. We just, how can you have fast food being delivered as a motorcycle courier? But then the world evolved to that. They were actually not wrong. The world evolved to that. And how can we make this useful? Now, one example, if I need to send anything to Turkey from Georgia, a package, parcel, I need 10 working days. It's unacceptable. 10 working days. From Istanbul to the eastern part of Turkey, to Rize, one can send anything in 2 days or 3 days. Why 10 days to Georgia? Why aren't we able to use these networks together? I mean, if you think about the whole Caucasus, particularly after the Azeri liberation of the occupied lands, the Nagorno-Karabakh, we will be looking at a new regional dimension. We should see the Caucasus as a whole, and think about it as a whole. And then no country is too big, no country is too small. We will be able to use those markets. Why shouldn't be a Georgian cargo company who could deliver anything in this region together with their Azeri, Armenian, Turkish counterparts in 4 days, 5 days? Why do I have to wait for 10 days for sending something small? Like if I want to send, let's say, churchkhela, why should I be waiting that long? Yeah? Or a notary document. So these are, I think, the things we should be looking at, the sectors. It's not about only our agriculture. Agriculture, yes. Where should we be selling Georgian dried fruits? You have an excellent haki, as I call it. We call it Trabzon hurma. So the dried form of it. It would be much welcome in Turkey. Or aplepicha, sea buckthorn. It will be much welcome. And all that is available in Artvin too, but you have the know-how, for instance. Why can't I put this organic producers of niche products? Not tomatoes. Everybody, I mean, we all grow tomatoes. But I would love to see tomato, organic tomato peeled. Why should I buy in Tbilisi imported tomato cans? We are good at that. We can do the investment in that, not only grow tomatoes. Juice. So all that things, full chain productions should be thought about. Some are on the way, some were on the way. The COVID crisis was an impediment, I must say. So it's not all because I'm a genius that I'm thinking all these things, because I got these ideas from the business people. They were thinking about it. But entrepreneurship is important. Creating, taking risks and making efforts. I've met, well, I didn't meet, they came to the embassy, 2 Georgian women, young women who are entrepreneurs. They're publishing books in a couple of languages, children's books. If you're like, you want to give your child a birthday present, they do a child's books where your child is the heroine or a hero of that book. This is the thinking, the idea, and they made it possible. And this is business. It's one of the best cultural businesses that I've seen in here, and they're working with Turkey.
Are they planning to export this
yes,
kind of?
Why not? And how can we, and this is an idea, and that can be developed into many things. But you see, they thought about something, an idea, they came up with the investment, they created something, they started marketing here, and now they can market it in Turkey. These are the examples I find very exciting. We don't need maybe huge investments. We don't need huge ideas, but we need the people who try, the small, medium enterprise. Everywhere, in Turkey too. In Turkey, the development came, the economic development came with the small, medium enterprise. When in small industrial workshops, they started doing small things which they needed for the industry. So I think that in Georgia you will also go through you are also going actually through that same phase. And that small medium enterprise is where we as Turkey have added value. Because we're close, other countries also have it. I mean, we're very close geographically. When in Turkey I know people who ask their friends here spare parts for cars. It's so, how would I say, interactive that governments cannot follow. And they are so naive actually. They ask us, and so it's forbidden, you cannot import. So these are issues which is very creative. And Georgians and Turks are very creative, I must say.
Okay, let's move to trade part. Turkey is main trade partner for Georgia, and in this direction, Turkey is really important for us, for sure. We have signed a free trade agreement about 12 years ago. After that, import and export from to Georgia has increased naturally, but imbalance between import and export is quite large. We know some reasons, but what do you think? How can we decrease this imbalance between, and how can we increase export to Turkey?
I have to admit again something I should not be saying in a TV podcast, but I do believe Georgia has to be more aggressive. It's not the government, it should be the business. If I were a Georgian business person, I would be looking into what Turkey imports from other countries, which Georgia can sell. This is the general question. So definitely this is something to look at. And I know one way that we can help Georgia not only to export to us, but to increase the general export, is to help with the structural issues, like how to help you to devise your export capabilities. Because we learned this. Turkey learned export after 1990s. Our economy was reshaped to export. And we can share that know-how with pleasure. It's not about only to us. The real value of Georgia is about, in the economy particularly, it's because it is able to export to many sites. So I think Georgia can benefit developing its export capability. You have a very good functioning program, Invest in Georgia, Produce in Georgia. So I think export from Georgia is something that will be very helpful. The planning of the commercial section openings in different embassies abroad, I think was very useful. And I hope that will be helpful, help Georgian side. I know that there are active programs going on by the government to attract investors. And of course, the investors ask why they should come here to produce, to export. Georgia needs to develop its export capabilities. It is a learned business. I remember I had a couple of options when I graduated from the university. It was either to enter the government service for foreign relations or to work on the foreign trade. Many of my friends went into the foreign trade and they learned about export. We have a whole scheme. We have unions, we have associations, we have the government incentives. So this we can share with Georgia, and we are very much willing to do it. So it's not about what you can sell to us, it's about how you can sell to everybody. And I also have to say that the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia is working very well in terms of its negotiations with the Turkish counterpart about opening up certain sectors, which I hope we will have sometime good news. But again, it's not about honey and meat. It's about what else. Because your production capabilities will be shaped if you're exporting. And you have to export because the market, domestic market here will be always small. You need to make use of that very well placed agreements. So that I'm working on with pleasure with the Turkish Exporters Union. They are happy to come and talk about this. And the producers here maybe could benefit from that professional experience. And it's about, I must say, export-oriented economy means you need professionals who are relentless. It's like real estate agents. You need to call and call again and then ask customer relations, all that. And a bit like journalists maybe. Like you don't answer the question and then you still ask the question. It's like that, you need a follow-up. But also you have to, or I have to say that statistically what looks like an imbalance, which is statistically is there are also other issues which Georgia, other topics or statistics with Georgia actually makes, it receives revenues from Turkey. I can easily tell you that the casino customers from Turkey are leaving in Turkey, in Georgia, a lot of cash. We don't exactly know how much is that, but that would be an interesting statistic to look at. Not only in Batumi, also in Tbilisi. The Turkish tourist income in that casino sector was very important. We've realized that during COVID. Then there are, of course, people who are working in Turkey and they're sending the remittances. That's also another income possibility. I'm not saying that these are equalizing the gap there, but the issue is in Turkey, the production of goods is higher, and when you look at the overall share of our trade in our general trade is low. That we need to go high. So I want Georgia to sell more, also to add that at least we should go up to $3 billion US, which is always has a good effect on both sides. The more Turkish traders, the more they're able to sell to Georgia, the more investment Georgia is able to attract from Turkey and elsewhere. It means purchasing power is increasing. And the better quality. My target is actually to bring here, I see some in the supermarkets, but not all, the good brands from Turkey. You have very good brands of apparel clothing, some shoes, yes, but we have more. In furniture, we have more. In textile, house textiles, there is some coming, and there is also, I've seen this year that they've created actually a Georgian brand. I don't know if I'm able to or if I'm allowed to give any names, but a Turkish company has created a Georgian brand on the home textiles. It's only in Georgia, and they can actually move that brand as a Georgian brand to the world. So this is very important. So creating Georgian brands should be another target for both Turkish and Georgian business. And most of the Turkish business who are active here, they conceptualize themselves as Georgian business. If you ask them, they say, oh no, we're a Georgian company. So, but of course, behind there's a Turkish investor and sometimes know-how and technical equipment. That's why they want to come to Georgia in the middle of COVID, even as the other citizens of the other countries. That's an issue that we will have to work on, because we are very much under pressure in the embassy. Many of the Turkish people who had been working here, who had residential permits, they basically say, like, why so-and-so country citizen can come and we cannot? Fair question.
Yeah. So several years ago, not several years ago, but like 1.5 years ago, you mentioned that there was a possibility to start joint venture between Georgian and Turkish investors in order to produce some
Plywood,
yeah. So what new do we have? Do we have any development in this regard?
Well, that per se investment was not able to happen, but the company in Batumi, Starwood, they have increased their capacity in Batumi, which is already there. They increased their production. But I think it's still there. If Georgia would like to produce furniture, it needs raw material. And there are many conceptual, good, artistic production of furniture here. And maybe that's a niche market. I've also seen very good examples of house, how would I say, like the kitchen and bathroom versions. Very good productions, very fast. We had a renovation in the residence, so this year I was able to see that happening. But for exports, and particularly export-oriented, that projects still need to be developed. I mean, that one single project which we talked about, I'm sorry it didn't move, but now that Georgia has a forest law, on the law on forest protection, and maybe that could happen. It's about how to use your natural resources without depleting them in a sustainable way. And I think Georgia has a prospect there.
Okay. So first export train from Turkey to China left Istanbul 2 months ago in the early beginning of December, as I remember, which was also passed through Georgia. Yeah. According to Minister of Economy of Georgia, Natia Turnava, says that the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway is the shortest road between China and Europe, which reduces the time the train needs to export some good, and also the price. That is increasing Georgia's competitiveness in the region. So what potential do you see for Georgia, and is it planned to increase the frequency of these train trips?
Well, the good news is the third one is on the way. So
Yeah.
the third one is on the way. It is going, and the overall, it was, I think, 18 days. So from 1 month it went into 18 days, and the goal is, I think, 12 at some stage. Of course, because we're looking, you see, it's not only about China. It's about Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, all that region. And Georgia and Turkey are also together in that lapis lazuli connection from Afghanistan. So the middle belt, as we say, is really, once it is effective, once it is price worthy in terms of competitive in the tariffs, of course it is very useful, because it's all these countries will benefit. It's not only about the end and the beginning, it's the process. And that use of that railroad, like we were talking about exports, right? So exports is possible only if you have competitive price in the transport. This is what the trains give. So is it possible for Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway to become a real alternative to northern route from Europe to China? I would think so. I would think so. And it's only, but again, are we really talking about alternatives in the post-COVID? There are so many other discussions going on. We would like to use all this, I mean, the northern route doesn't give Turkey and Georgia to send their own production to anywhere, right? You want to use your own transport. The Georgian wine going to China, to Kazakhstan. If it goes with train, wouldn't it be better?
Of course.
I think so, but okay, maybe the land transporters are not happy with me, but it is a competition with ourselves, actually. It's not only about the routes, it's about which type of transport.
Yes, sure. Okay, the number of employees who are leaving Georgia and going to Turkey for work is quite large, and in 2019 you also mentioned during our first interview that their numbers, like not their numbers, but visas they have Georgians have received was just like more than 27,000 or something like that.
Is more than 27,000.
Yeah. So what situation do we have now, and what kind of advices do you have for Georgians who are planning to go to Turkey and work in this situation?
Frankly speaking, I don't have a statistic for you at this stage, because during the COVID pandemic, what happened was that people who wanted to go and live in Turkey, more than, say, 10 days, 15 days stay, they have a right to stay 3 months in 180 days. So those people who we believe might also be working in short term, but I'm saying might be, because if we think they are, they need to take work permits. So I give them the benefit of doubt that they're not working, they're just staying 3 months. So the number of these people exceeded 6,000 in a couple of months. As soon as the Georgian government accepted a regulation that the people who get an invitation from a notarius in Turkey guaranteed that their accommodation there is covered or something, more than 6,000 people left. So I have my hypothesis that some of these Georgian citizens are there, were there for short-term employment. And I published, we have published from our Facebook and social media accounts 2 important warnings. One, if you want to work in Turkey, you need to take a work permit, which will give you, which is the second part, a social security. Without a work permit, if you work, you are more prone to exploitation. I would like to believe that the Turkish people are mostly, very much so, fair, and they treat their guests or their workers fair and right. But like in Georgia or elsewhere, sometimes something goes wrong. So when you need that security guarantee for hospitals or anything else, they should have social security, and they should be able to ask for their rights. It's labor rights, and it's important. So that's why the Turkish government says to all the foreigners, including the Georgians, please take a work permit. If you're going for seasonal work and tea plantations, tchili or hazelnuts, then you can even apply for that. But if you're again going there to work in the housework, you can apply for that. But that social security is important. So I will ask, because they're mostly women, and obviously I have, as a woman myself, I have interest to see that all social and labor rights of all women in the world should be protected. Turkey has the legislation, Turkey has the mechanisms to give that. So we would like the Georgian citizens to make use of these and apply, and tell their employers to apply for the work permit. It's important. It's about social security. Like if they have a flu and they want to go to a hospital in Turkey, they can have free medication in Turkey if they have that permit. And that's important. And I know a couple of cases in Georgian citizens who had worked with work permit in Turkey more than 10 years. They were eligible for a pension. And they were able to get a pension. So having a work permit pays off in the long run. It may mean lower salaries in the short run, but please, my appeal to particularly women in the workforce, Georgian women working in Turkey, please get a legal work permit. The numbers, again, if we look at the numbers of those who enter Turkey, leave Turkey, and that residual part, tell us that there are tens of thousands who can be in Turkey at any given time. Yet again, we encourage legal presence in Turkey, and we understand the issues involved, but we have to, the Turkish authorities have to apply the law. And these are all human issues as well. I know there are NGOs in Turkey, Turkish NGOs, who are trying to cooperate with the families. And because it's all very good, like one is married, a sister is married to a Turkish man, and then the sister-in-law goes and they want to stay together. And so it needs bureaucracy. I understand. And again, I said Turkish and Georgian people are very creative sometimes and they want shortcut solutions. But we have to find the right way, not the shortcut.
And finally, I would like to ask about your plans for this current year. So personally, you as an ambassador, what plans do you have in Georgia?
Wow, I mean, there are so many things I wanted to do last year, which is now like in my hands, postponed. There are lots of projects, which cultural strategic communications, as they call it, but I say cultural dialogue projects. We wanted to do, Turkey was supposed to be the guest of honor for the book fair last year. We couldn't. So this year, I don't know how the book fair will be, but if it is going to be, we would like to be there. And we have, there's a wonderful book which has been translated in, to Georgia, the Turkish poem, Anthology of Poems. It's been translated to Georgia, into Georgian by wonderful translators. Makvala Hanım, Kalbatono Makvala in Izmir. She coordinated the project. So we wanted to do nights, poem nights, and we have this year the year of Yunus Emre, who is our Shota Rustaveli in one sense. So we would like to do that Shota Rustaveli, Yunus Emre comparative readings and raise awareness about how humanism of this pre-14th century, 13th century in this geography prevailed despite all that Mongolian invasions and all that. Then I had the hope, dream of having musicians, young musicians, classical musicians, rock, jazz, even metal, to have that interaction. And work with the institutes here on the theater, particularly. Very good choreographers in Georgia, and the Turkish, many of the Turkish conservatoires which appeared after 1990s had the involvement of Georgian musicians and Georgian artists. So I wanted to pay tribute to them. Some of them are in Turkey, some of them are here still. The city I grew up in, Mersin. I grew up in Mersin. When I grew up, there wasn't a conservatoire, there wasn't a university, and today there is. And there is a real interesting Georgian component of that history. So I wanted to work a bit on that. So let's see how, the list is very long, I must say. And personally, I love Georgia so much with the nature, the people, the regions, the diversity, and the closeness of everything. Like you can be in 3 hours skiing and then going horse riding and then be on a beach. So, and Turkey doesn't know about this. Most of the Turks have not heard of Svaneti. They have no idea that they're all these beautiful places which are so different and yet so similar. And the Georgians as well. I've seen with regret that many Georgians did not see Cappadocia, which is very important in the Georgian historical sense because of Saint Nino and Saint George. This is where they come from. And this is where one of my ancestors is coming from, so my great-grandfather. So I wanted to do, for instance, this Uchisar and the city of Ürgüp, Göreme, Nevşehir province, to have the protocol, and everything is ready. They just need to sign it with actually Kaheti, with Signagi, because Saint Nino was born there.
So you mean tours for tourists?
Not only tours, sister cities.
Okay.
This cultural exchange, because Saint Nino is buried in Bodbe and she was born there. So it's like where she started and where she is resting now. And do maybe if we could promote that regional tourism, particularly with the Caucasus element, like from Kayseri, which is Nevşehir, Kayseri, Kars, Ninots Minda, to Signagi. It's a fantastic route to be marketed also for the rest of the world, which means you have to cross from Vartsia, for instance. Uplitske, all these places, these caves where monastic life continued. And so I would like to encourage also the Georgians to discover more than Istanbul airport or the shopping centers or the Antalya and Bodrum, which is, you're always welcome there, but there's more. Like in Kars, when I went to Kars, Ani, the ancient city, it was once the capital of the ancient Armenian kingdom, but there's a lot of Georgian heritage there, and people are not aware of it. So all these things are ancient history together. So and they're to be discovered.
So how can we promote this?
I want influencers from both sides, like from Turkey to come here and to put it on the Turkish agenda of nature lovers. Those who come, for instance, to Kars just before the COVID, Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Adana, all these big cities of Turkey. I'm talking about cities who have populations more than 4 million. And when you look in that market for Georgia, all these people who are coming to Kars, to Turkey, in Turkey. From Kars, Tbilisi is 5 hours by car. Borjomi is, like Bakuriani, is 3 hours. So why not having some ski in Kars, but also in Georgia? Enjoy the different sides of the border. Or I went to Bakhmaro recently. It's beautiful, beautiful free ski. I'm not a free skier, by the way, I'm scared. But I know many people in Turkey are looking for places. Coming to here, to Georgia, is more affordable, it's very authentic, and it will really be a big appeal for the Turkish market. So I would like to see the more Turkish tourist potential to discover Georgia culturally, because they come until Batumi and they don't see much in Batumi. They just go, have a Cornish walk, and then go back. And they don't even understand how beautiful the mountainous Ajara is, from Hulo, Beshumi, and then there's so much to discover. They would love. So I would like to have that. My personal, because I went around and I was able to set my feet in every Georgian region, and that I'm proud of, which I'd like to explore more. But I'd like that to be more open for the Turks, for them to discover. Likewise, from Georgia, I could see a lot of young, vibrant, the Z generation Georgians who will be able to discover in Turkey not only about Georgian history, about the Georgian Orthodox Church, but also how similar certain things are in living terms. Like the people who are in Kaheti, their life cycle is very similar to, say, to Tekirdağ. It's all about wine and the wine culture. And then the potatoes in Salka is the true story of Nide, which is close. So there are very similarities. Selçukians.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
It was really very interesting.
It's always a pleasure.